bad thing happens, you can either let it destroy you, define you, or strengthen you. Choose wisely. I'd like to shout out to one of our sponsors for this podcast, which is Element Recharge. It's a great electrolytic drink that has all the good ingredients that you need. It's got potassium, magnesium, and sodium, and none of the junk. No sugar, no gluten, no fillers, no artificial nothing. It's both paleo and keto friendly. And it was co-founded by my buddy Rob Wolf, who's been a leader in the nutrition space for over a decade. He worked with the Navy SEALs. Rob is one of the best, and I love his product. And I use this every single day after a workout, and even have some in the morning when I wake up. So 1 to 2 packs a day. This stuff will help you recover. It'll help relieve hunger, cramps, headaches, dizziness, anything like that that comes from underhydration and not being salty enough. Also, they're going to let you try it risk-free. If you don't like the product, then share it with a salty friend and they'll give you your money back, no questions asked. They're offering you a sample pack for just the cost of shipping. That's $5 for U.S. orders. And each sample pack includes 8 packets of Element, 2 citrus, 2 raspberry, 2 orange, and 2 raw. I love the citrus and the orange myself. Anyways, go get yours. It's limited to 1 time per customer. I'm excited that you're going to try this. I know that you'll love it just as much as I do. Go to drinklmnt.com/unbeatablemind. That's drink, DRINKLMNT.com/unbeatablemind. Hoo-yah. This is Mark Devine. Welcome back to the Unbeatable Mind podcast. Thanks so much for joining me today. Super appreciate your time and your attention. Today I have another solo podcast reading chapter 9 of the 4th edition of Unbeatable Mind, which is coming out this fall. The title of the chapter is Embodying Unbeatable Virtues. Hope you enjoy. Quote, "The ultimate value of life depends upon awareness and the power of contemplation, rather upon mere survival." Aristotle. Q was talented and respected as an enlisted SEAL. He gave the appearance of being fit and skilled. Also looked like, externally, that he possessed a strong character. Of course, to be a SEAL, one has to exhibit unusual character traits to begin with. However, Q's actions during a single operation I was involved with proved to me how much character must be habituated daily and constantly refined with what we call virtues. If you let your guard down, you could expose yourself to the firm grip of negative conditioning, poor habits, which lead to lapses of judgment and the erosion of said character. That's what I saw happen with Q. It's a dangerous shipboarding mission. Q held a key position, managing what I call a critical node, where if something went wrong, it would jeopardize the entire mission and the team. Halfway through this mission, it did go wrong. Under the hull of the ship and the blackness of the night water, things suddenly spun out of control. It was just a few crucial moments when we were transitioning from being under the boat on dive status to surfacing beneath the ship and then climbing up to do our shipboarding. In that moment, apparently Q lost his focus and became disoriented and was unable to complete a critical task, which triggered a cascading failure, rippling down the diver line as our dive rigs plunged to the bottom of the bay. Our senior enlisted diver, Big Rob, was dragged to the bottom of the ocean where he was trapped without oxygen. Fortunately for Rob, and for me as a leader, he was an exceptional diver and could hold his breath for over 6 minutes, and he was cool as a cucumber in a crisis. Rob methodically dissected the problem from the depths, was able to cut himself free and ascend to the surface. There were definitely some nerve-wracking moments on the surface for me, wondering what had happened, where was Rob, and whether he was alive. But that underwater drama played out beyond our view and later revealed during a debrief. The breakdown had the obvious technical screw-up, but a less obvious failure was exposed soon enough. I learned that Q had been riding the edge, using recreational drugs while off duty. I know, you're thinking, a Navy SEAL? Really? Well, it can happen. Q rationalized that what he did on his own time was his own business. But for elite operators, or anyone really for that matter, the job and the commitment to the team requires an untarnished 100% focus and mental clarity on and off duty. Anything short can put others at risk, especially in an intense and confusing way that SEALs operated. Lucky for Q that the chief didn't get the worst of it. In high-risk environments, lack of this type of habituated virtue gets exposed fast, but not so much in the more everyday, mundane environments of the corporate world. But in high-risk environments, your team relies on excellence from each and every individual all the time, even when off duty. Character issues that could jeopardize the team need to be dealt with right away so that the individual and the team avoid harm, grow, and get the mission accomplished. Many organizations, those personal issues often get buried or are dealt with only after something blows up. Individuals can get by for a long period of time, long enough to see some success. But these unresolved character issues eventually dismantle their progress and impede the team's progress. To succeed at the highest levels, leaders must habituate these positive virtues that allow the team to know where they stand moment to moment, day in and day out, so they can all mobilize toward mission success. Virtues are positive values backed by a universality of truth and habituated so that they show up in an emotional embodied state, meaning you live the value. You don't just talk about the value. Examples can include things like trust and humility and patience. Vanilla values that can seem somewhat subjective, as we must each decide why it is valued and what benefit it brings to our life. When I say vanilla values, I'm talking about things that you find in a leadership seminar where they ask you to write a list of things you value, and what you come up is like family and leadership and things like that. And those are fine. But virtues, I see, are different. They're really deep character. They represent traits that are more hard-cut and observable across cultures and ages, and that always lead to positive results. We can all pretty much agree on what trust and honesty looks like, even though one's particular culture may place a unique form or of currency on these virtues as compared to, say, faith or charity. Values are nothing more than words until we choose to practice and habituate them and integrate them into our character, in both public and private. Then we can call it a virtue. Portraying a value in public but betraying it in your private life means you might as well be acting in a movie. It's not real. It's not the same as truly embodying a virtue. Unfortunately, many public figures are often clueless about this principle. Greek philosophers such as Socrates understood that philosophy was really the cultivation of virtue, not just a thought project. He believed that virtue defined one's place as a citizen. Heraclitus said that character is destiny, and Aristotle told us that to enjoy the things we ought to enjoy has the greatest bearing on excellence of character, and no one who desires to become good would become good unless he does good things. Ralph Waldo Emerson advised us that, quote, character is higher than intellect, and Albert Schweitzer said that, quote, the example is not the main thing in life, it is the only thing. These philosophers, both ancient and more modern, are in agreement that virtuous action defines one's character. It isn't what you think or say that's most important, it's the actions you take, especially when no one's looking. Consider now what your core virtues of excellence are. Where do you stand for these? What do you stand for when all else is stripped away? Embodying virtue is a life practice, not a one-time contemplation or act. With that analysis, it should be clear that virtues are behavioral skills that must be carefully selected and then trained into bedrock patterns. What virtues hold the most power for unbeatable leaders? I will discuss some in this section to provide food for thought. But first, let's hear what the SEALs stand for. the Navy SEAL ethos. The SEALs developed an ethos, written ethos, in the mid-2000s after a series of character challenges from a stress force after many years at war. Of course, they've always had an ethos. It was just handed down orally and through the actions of the leaders and the instructors. But what they wrote down is instructive of the virtues that we're talking about. Here it is. In times of war or uncertainty, there's a special breed of warrior ready to answer our nation's call. Common citizens with uncommon desire to succeed. Forged by adversity, they stand alongside America's finest special operations forces to serve their country, the American people, and protect their way of life. I am that warrior. My trident is a symbol of honor and heritage. Bestowed upon me by the heroes that have gone before, it embodies the trust of those that I have sworn to protect. By wearing the trident, I accept the responsibility of my chosen profession and way of life. It's a privilege that I must earn every day. My loyalty to country and team is beyond reproach. I humbly serve as a guardian to my fellow Americans, always ready to defend those who are unable to defend themselves. I do not advertise the nature of my work, nor seek recognition for my actions. I voluntarily accept the inherent hazards of my profession, placing the welfare and security of others before my own. I serve with honor on and off the battlefield. The ability to control my emotions and my actions, regardless of circumstances, sets me apart from others. Uncompromising integrity is my standard. My character and honor are steadfast. My word is my bond. We expect to lead and be led. In the absence of orders, I will take charge, lead my teammates, and accomplish the mission. I lead by example in all situations. I will never quit. I persevere and thrive on adversity. My nation expects me to be physically harder and mentally stronger than my enemies. If knocked down, I will get back up every time. I will draw on every remaining ounce of strength to protect my teammates and accomplish our mission. I am never out of the fight. We demand discipline. We expect innovation. The lives of my teammates and the success of our mission depend upon me, my technical skill, tactical proficiency, and attention to detail. My training is never complete. We train for war and fight to win. I stand ready to bring the full spectrum of combat power to bear in order to achieve my mission and the goals established by my country. The execution of my duties will be swift and violent when required, yet guided by the very principles that I serve to defend. Brave SEALs have fought and died building the proud tradition and feared reputation that I am bound to uphold. In the worst of conditions, the legacy of my teammates steadies my resolve and silently guides my every deed. I will not fail. You could codify this into the following 7-part code: loyalty to country, team, and teammate, serving with honor and integrity on and off your battlefields, being ready to lead, ready to follow, and never quitting, taking responsibility for your actions and the actions of your teammates, excelling as warriors through discipline and innovation, training for your war, fighting to win, and defeating your enemies, and earning your proverbial trident every day. Now we'll take a look at some other unbeatable virtues that you can begin to embody and shore up for your own personal ethos so you can stand your ground when pushed to the edge. I'm stoked to have ExpressVPN as a sponsor of this podcast. I learned to surveil when I was in the SEALs, and we would do it on every mission. But I got to tell you, I don't like being the object of surveillance. And I don't trust all the big tech companies that are surveilling us and then selling our data or providing it to, well, you know who, the government. That's why I use ExpressVPN. Even when I'm at home, I use it on my laptop and on my iPhone. It's an app that reroutes your internet connection through their secure servers so your ISP can't see the sites you visit, keeps all your information secure by encrypting 100% of your data. And it's available, like I said, on all your devices, phones, computers, even your smart TV. There's no excuse not to be using this now. So protect your online activity today with the VPN rated #1 by CNET and Wired. You can visit our exclusive link at expressvpn.com/unbeatable. Get an extra 3 months free on your 1-year package. That's Express, ExpressVPN.com/unbeatable. ExpressVPN.com/unbeatable. Go there to learn more. Hoo-yah. You won't regret it. Trustworthiness. The first virtue that Q compromised that dangerous night under the hull of the ship was trustworthiness. Trustworthiness is the glue that holds relationships and teams together. It is evidenced when individuals display dependability, such as follows. They're aligned in thought, word, and deed, and have predictable integrity in their actions. They follow through on all their commitments. They're courageous and don't shirk from responsibility or challenging assignments. They don't run or hide during a crisis, but rather step up to lead and help out. They're competent enough to get the job done well and unafraid to ask for help when they need it. They're supportive of the team and delegate liberally. They trust the team to get the mission done. Author Stephen M.R. Covey, son of Stephen Covey, author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, wrote a book called The Speed of Trust, which I think offers a really neat formula regarding the impact of trust. The formula says that increased trust equals increased speed and decreased cost, where decreased trust equals decreased speed and increased cost. He offers the example of the TSA bureaucracy. Before 9/11, 2001, there was a high level of trust in air travel in the U.S. Then, due to the shocking breach of trust on that day by the terrorists, the speed of air travel as a whole decreased by roughly an hour domestically and often more than 2 hours internationally. And the cost to society went up significantly to fund the TSA and enhance other organizational initiatives protecting air travelers and ensuring that airlines were never weaponized again. Trust in institutions around the world was severely damaged by the impact of governmental response to COVID-19 in 2020. Trust went down as people were fed a steady dose of fear, leading to increased costs, slowing down traditional logistical supply chains, and more people ending up being injured financially and emotionally from the government response than the actual virus. Back to Q. The breach in his stand almost killed a teammate and derailed his mission. It also destroyed the team's trust in him. This is how one aw shit can wipe out 1,000 attaboys. In business, deals fall apart, reputations are damaged, and firms will go out of business when trust is breached. Personal and team trustworthiness must be of the highest priority. But how is trust developed? Let's look at some common myths about trust and work to dispel them. These can include that trustworthiness is a soft skill only. This is wrong. Trust is a combination of both soft and hard skills. And trustworthiness is developed slowly over time. This is wrong too. It can be created quickly and destroyed quickly. The key is to develop the habit of maintaining trustworthiness at all times. This takes discipline. 3, trustworthiness is just solely about integrity. This is wrong. Though integrity is critical for trust to develop between parties, trust goes beyond integrity, speaking to one's entire character. Once lost, trustworthiness is gone forever. This is also wrong. You can make amends, say you're sorry, and then slowly rebuild trust. In business, many think it's simply too risky to trust. This is wrong. It's essential to have trust for optimal performance in business, as in all areas of life. If you're trustworthy and you must deal with a party you know to be untrustworthy or that you simply don't know well, which is common, then deep trust will not exist but can be built one transaction at a time. Or we use a trusted third party or a decentralized trustless platform like blockchain. Trustworthiness is only relevant to individuals and teams. This is wrong. Organizations also have a reputation based on the collective trustworthiness of each team and team member. Their trustworthiness is displayed in how they interact with their customers, peers, and their communities. When it comes to developing trustworthiness as a virtue, here are some habits that we might want to consider developing. 1, talk straight. Let's avoid spins and double talk and flattery, and especially lying. 2, demonstrate respect. You want deserve respect, so why not begin by showing respect for others? 3, be transparent. Avoid withholding information and keeping secrets unless absolutely necessary to protect intellectual property, let's say, or to prevent someone from getting hurt. 4, right your wrongs quickly. We all screw up, so admit it and repair things as fast as possible. 5, be loyal. Don't take all the credit or sell others out, and don't gossip. 6, if you promise results, deliver them. Better yet, exceed them. 7, you heard this from the SEALs, earn your trident every day. That means strive to improve your trustworthiness, put out 100% every day. 8, clarify your expectations. Ensure that the explicit and implicit task of your mission and those that you delegate are crystal clear. 9, practice strong accountability, starting with yourself and demand it of your team and organization. The buck always stops with you, though, as a leader. 10, practice authentic listening. Really listen without judging or projecting. That one habit creates intense trust. Communicate with brutal honesty. Use the brief pre-action review of your plan and the debrief process post-action review of what happened to keep communicating at all levels so you can always be learning and helping others, and you can get the truth out and get to the bottom of things so everyone can grow and move on. And lastly, 12, learn to trust others by delegating and giving more responsibility, and then providing support when the failures occur. Start a dialogue about trustworthiness with your team. Be willing to expose your own shortcomings and be open to the direct and honest feedback that I'm talking about. You may be surprised what you learn about yourself and your teammates, and that discussion alone will increase trust between you and your teammates. Building trust by forging personal trustworthiness sees loyalty among the team rise with the tide. Integrity. The word integrity often shows up on most people's value list or most companies' value list. But as with all values, integrity is just a word unless it's lived and measured by the positive impact it has on your team and organization and stakeholders. Leadership expert Warren Bennis said that, quote, leadership is doing the right thing while management is doing things right. And it's integrity that drives the leader to do the right thing, even if it has ugly consequences for herself or the team. Integrity requires deep alignment of how one thinks, how one speaks, and how then one's thoughts and words are translated into action, usually in that order. Aligning thoughts, words, and action along a highly evolved moral compass takes serious introspective work. Integrity defects can be found behind anyone unwilling to share important information or who misleads their team or other stakeholders or changes their stance from one day to the next or one group to the next to avoid discomfort. Sustainable excellence is elusive without the integrity virtue. Dishonesty, hiding incompetence and mistakes, shirking accountability, shifting blame for your failure, or taking credit for another or the team's success are examples displaying a lack of integrity. Any small dishonest action in a seemingly unrelated arena can point to a larger issue that will eventually reveal itself. During one of our SEALFIT Kokoro camp events, I remember one trainee running the final mile of a long endurance workout, but he did it about face, 50 feet before the turnaround point. It was dark around midnight. He thought that nobody was watching. But of course, somebody was, and that individual was called out for the seemingly inconsequential breach. But he left the training in regret with the lesson that, quote, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. Cheating, even on seemingly inconsequential things, will chip away at trust just as much as cheating on the big things. Short-term gain is soon demolished by the regret, shame, and degradation of respect that accompanies the inevitable exposure of the lie, not to mention the anxiety that envelopes you while living with your choice. Aligning thoughts, words, and actions in integrity doesn't mean you have to be a goody two-shoes and cause harm with your, quote, integrous actions. Nor do you need to slam or shame anyone you observe who's breaching integrity. Wisdom dictates sensitive responses over blanket policies. Here's an example. I was once contacted contacted by a young lady looking for information about her SEAL, quote, unquote, dad's heroic exploits in Vietnam. The problem was that her dad was never a SEAL. He was posturing as one. We call that a phony in our SEAL community. The SEALs have such an outsized reputation. Phonies are actually pretty rampant. I've heard a statistic that every 1 out of every 10 people who say they are SEALs are actually Navy SEALs. Anyways, this news put me in a dilemma. Was it up to me to expose this fraud and protect the integrity of the SEAL's name? Or was it better to stay silent and to protect this guy's relationship with his daughter? I mean, who am I to destroy that? Of course, my initial reaction and desire was to out this jerk. But how would the girl's life change when she found out that her father had been lying to her for her entire life? I finally decided that it wasn't my duty to be the judge, jury, and executioner in this case, so I decided not to expose the integrity breach and fraud that led him to live this dishonor. So when I responded to her email, I simply said that the information she was seeking was not available to me. It's a tough one. The practice of authentic communication is a great tool to deepen integrity. This practice requires that you use the pause, breathe, think, and act tool instead of just reacting when in conversation. Then when you're ready to act, which is to either speak your thoughts or take an action, you only speak if the following conditions apply. 1, what you're about to say is as accurate and true as best as you can determine. 2, what you're about to say is actually helpful instead of harmful. And 3, that what you're about to say comes from a place of positivity and respect. Man, actually listening, pausing, breathing, thinking, and then communicating that matter is a sea change leading to integrity. Those requirements for authentic communication provide an excellent mindfulness practice, and it can lead to much deeper connection in relationships born on deep integrity. When this type of authentic communication is habituated, your words gain increased potency, as communication at that level is anchored in truth and wisdom. My guess is the world would be a quieter place also if everyone practiced this, and that would be nice. Humility. Whenever I was in the presence of Grand Master Tadashi Nakamura, my Seido and Zen teacher, I was struck by how humble he was. And ever since training with him, I've used the presence of genuine humility as a litmus test for whether someone is an authentic leader or a charlatan. There are many smart and outwardly successful people in the world masquerading as authentic leader, yet it's serving their inflated ego. A show of caring to look good is simply acting out of self-interest. Humility is often hidden within the quiet professional. Sometimes it's displayed by unique individuals on the world stage. A good example is Nelson Mandela, who returned to the prison where he was held for a large part of his life to forgive the prison guards and to thank them for being his teachers. When you see something like that, or someone like Kaicho Nakamura teaching karate to blind teenagers, or a Marine risking his life to rescue a young child caught in the line of fire, you're witnessing humility in action. Humility is not relegated to special people. Remember, special is the new normal, so it should not require a moment of extreme crisis or 20 years of training to develop humility. You can choose it now by removing the ego from your actions. Connect to your witness and focus on helping others, especially when it's inconvenient or not in your personal interests at that moment. Humility is also deepened by releasing attachment to desires and to expected outcomes in your life. If you let go and let things flow, you will see the moment unfold as it's meant to and stop trying to control things. Giving up the compulsive need to control is humbling. This helps you be okay with what is and helps you connect to the energy around you rather than fighting against it. The humble individual flows with the current while the ego individual seeks to swim against it or to reshape the entire river. Taking your eyes off yourself and instead directing your focus on serving your teammates builds humility. One of the best ways to cultivate this is to not leap in immediately to earn your leadership stripes, unless you have no choice, but to watch carefully and be as helpful as possible. In the SEAL teams, the officers are responsible for the mission, and if things go wrong, they'll take the hit. But there's usually someone else leading the various aspects of the mission. One SEAL could be leading the dive, another leading a jump, third leading the direct action raid, and so on. It's expected that the officers will develop the humility to get the heck out of the way and to let these guys do what they do best. Officers who don't learn humility don't fare so well. When supporting my teammates as leaders of key parts of our missions, I was giving them the opportunity to fail and learn. The SEALs in those situations often had way more skills and experience than I did anyhow, so I got comfortable supporting the others to lead in my stead, and I developed the humility to check my ego and let them have their turn. I also had to recognize when I was compromised due to fatigue or confusion and wasn't equipped to make the right call. Then I'd step aside and ask someone else to take over. You really can't be good at everything all the time. The virtue of humility deepens trust and loyalty. When not in a leadership role, this virtue still comes into play. A good rule of thumb is to try to make the leader's job easier through your actions. You will gain the trust and respect of the team, and when needed, you will be called upon to lead. With this attitude, your time will soon come. If you force the issue, you can put yourself and the team at risk. Like with the SEAL teams, remember that within the fabric of a strong team, every teammate has the capacity and character to lead. Everyone is simply awaiting the opportunity to serve in a leading role. You can practice this virtue of humility by sharing the credit for the team's successes, whether you were the one who had the big idea or were in charge. I've always wanted and coveted a super high-end watch. One of those beautiful ones like a Rolex that, just makes you feel good and looks like you've kind of made it. But I just wasn't willing to pay the price. These things are, well over $1,000. Well, I found a company, and I'm now pleased to announce that they're a sponsor of ours at Unbeatable Mind podcast called Vincero. And they know how important it is to look and feel your best, but also understand that not everyone can afford or wants to pay, thousands of dollars for an ornament, to put on their wrist. So they solved that, which is really cool to me because I know that technology exists to make beautiful things at a reasonable price, and they've done it. So I feel like they built this watch for me. They've got a ton of different options. I scrolled through their website, by the way, which is beautifully done. You got to have a shopping experience that's seamless, and they've done that as well. So the website is beautiful. It's easy to find, the differentiation between the different watches that they have. And they've got pictures from multiple angles, and you right away you're drawn in and you're like, oh yeah, that's the one for me. And they offer a 5-year warranty and a 365-day return policy. These guys have made it really easy for those of us who have coveted high-end watches, but wanted at an affordable price and an easy shopping experience. Boom. They nailed it. So check them out at vincerowatches.com. That's VINCERO watches, WATCHES.com/unbeatable. That's my page. And it's important because when you go to that page, they'll have an option for a discount code. And that code is also unbeatable. Pretty easy to remember. Unbeatable. UNBEATABLE. If you want to buy one of these watches after checking them out, you'll get a 20% discount and free shipping because of the relationship that we've developed with them. I love my watch. I think you'll like it too if you want to have a high-end, very beautiful watch that is not at a high-end, very not so beautiful price. vincerowatches.com/unbeatable. Go check them out. I know you'll be pleased. Hoo-yah to Vincero. Responsibility. Responsibility presents itself in many different forms. CEOs, warriors, other leaders accept responsibility for the lives of others and the well-being of a large team or tribe. A transaction with a customer conveys with it the responsibility to fulfill your end of the bargain. You can see how taking on and fulfilling, or not, a responsibility has an impact on one's sense of trustworthiness, integrity, and humility. When you claim responsibility as a virtue, those who depend upon you can rest a little bit easier. They trust that you're going to follow through and carry your load, which helps them to commit more deeply to their part of the bargain. In a strong team, responsibility builds a culture where everyone is truly in it together. Each teammate has the other's back, and trust goes through the roof, as do results. On the other hand, ignoring or abdicating responsibility breaches trust and erases loyalty quickly. Accountability is the flip side of responsibility. When responsible for something or someone, you are held accountable for the consequences if things go wrong. Notice that there is no need for accountability when things go right. When things go wrong is when your character goes on display. We observe a failure of courage in leaders when they don't accept full accountability. I've already pointed out the epidemic of political and business leaders denying scandals and pointing the finger rather than accepting accountability. I'm reminded of the CEO of British Petroleum and his handling of Deepwater Horizon oil spill in 2010. This man was cavalier and he downplayed the risk to the environment and the wildlife, even denying full accountability of his firm. When the shit hit the fan, he immediately shifted focus to cover his ass. Had he taken ownership of the situation and become the face for accountability for the organization, he would have been praised. The world responds positively to people who screw up but accept accountability even in a disaster. Extreme accountability extends this principle to taking care of your teammates as well. Recall that SEAL ethos statement. Take responsibility for your own actions and the actions of your teammates. This is a burden gladly accepted when you work with teammates who have integrity and you must trust with your life. However, when the risk is lower, that level of accountability is hard to find. Many organizations that don't deal with life and death issues develop a penchant for risk aversion and blame identifying rather than extreme accountability. When teammates take personal responsibility for both mission and the team, without excessive regulations inhibiting risk of fear or reprimand, the shared responsibility has a powerful force multiplier effect. Perseverance. When I first set foot in the fabled Bud's training grounds, I noted the sign stating, "The only easy day was yesterday." That message was a reminder to dedicate my complete focus and energy to this day, this evolution, this moment. Everything that has happened up to this point was preparation for right now. Yesterday was easy because it's over and done with. Did the saying mean that yesterday's training was easy or that today was going to be harder than yesterday? Nope, none of that mattered. What it meant was that who cares about yesterday? We had to deliver results right here, right now. Show up and put out 100%, and then we get to do it all again tomorrow. It's a great virtue to live by. The memory of yesterday is interesting. There were some lessons learned, but it's over. Stop ruminating on it. And tomorrow hasn't happened yet, right? So stop wishing you were there and not here. Focus on performing the most potent task that lies in front of you and do it right now. You can stay focused on your mission by focusing on the most important targets to the exclusion of all else. And then do that one day at a time, day in and day out. Perseverance is found in the moment when you're focused on your micro targets and when those micro targets are connected to your why. I saw this virtue during a SEAL op in Desert Storm. The mission was supposed to be a classic underwater demolition team mission. The SEAL team was to stage a mock amphibious invasion to trick Saddam Hussein's forces into thinking that was where and how the war would start. But this team struggled with how to move huge amounts of explosives to shore clandestinely through hot water riddled with sharks. Bringing it in by boat would increase the risk of detection, while swimming it in would require multiple trips, exposing the teams to the sharks and heat exhaustion, and not to mention attack from the shore. But the team was determined to persevere and to find a way or make a way to accomplish this mission. One of the teammates was a young surfer from Southern California. He suggested bringing the C4 haversacks in on boogie boards. After a few moments of disbelief, the leader said he liked the idea, and he sent a request back to Coronado for blacked-out boogie boards to be sent over. The desk-bound Vietnam combat vet receiving this request said out loud, "What the hell? I thought we were fighting a war over there, and they're asking for boogie boards?" But once the operational nature of this request was understood, the boards were sent, and the mission was a success. There's a couple points to this story that I want to bring out. First, special operators are taught to persevere regardless of the circumstances and the challenges and even how desperate things can get. Find a way or make one is one of the mottos. This requires a strong dose of creativity and acceptance of ideas from all quarters, which means humility. Second, they never give up. To persevere is to persevere against all odds, and you must believe that failure is not an option. It doesn't mean you can't fail or won't fail or things will never go wrong. Rather, it means that you don't accept the concept of failure. You find a way or make one, and you learn how to not do something. Remember, there are winners and learners, but there is also a third type, the winner and learner. That's the unbeatable leader. That's you. Learning what doesn't work, creating a new way forward, and not being devastated if things don't work out because there's always tomorrow. The only easy day was yesterday. That's success. With this approach, you literally can't fail. You simply keep trying until you figure things out through trial and error and iterating. And you move on to more important targets and a larger mission. Perseverance is an embodied virtue that requires that you, 1, are optimistic, you actually expect to succeed or win. 2, your mission and goals are extremely motivating to you and your team. 3, not only do you expect to succeed and you're motivated by your mission, but you and your team have such a burning desire to succeed that you can't imagine any other outcome. Like in Navy SEAL training, you've got to have the attitude that you'll have to kill me to get me out of here. 4, you and your team understand the difference between your skills and knowledge now and what will be required to succeed at the level you seek. If there's too much to overcome in the time frame that you have, then you'll choose a preliminary target that gives you the skills and momentum you need. 5, you'll ensure that you maintain mental and physical capital through awareness of your habits, physical health, sleep, and overall resiliency, so that you can pull the mission off and you're not the one to compromise the team. And lastly, once you commit, you burn your boats and press forward and never, ever, ever quit. Non-attachment. It is human to get attached to a desire, to a person, a position, an opinion, or pet idea, to your mission, or any outcome you expect for that matter. Attachments, though, like this, always lead to some form of suffering, in the sense that you will always be disappointed when things change and you're left wondering what happened. Inevitably, attachments lead to letdowns, or as my friend Christine Hassler likes to say, expectations lead to expectation hangovers. Nothing besides a universal truth can survive the constant change we experience in this world. This virtue of non-attachment is one of the more difficult to embody because it runs so counter to what we're taught in our society. It takes practice to not identify with our beloved thoughts, emotions, plans, and accomplishments. We mistake them for who we are, and we miss the forest for the trees, which is our witnessing self. The practice of connecting to your witness, as we discussed earlier in this book, and mindfully observing your thoughts, emotions, and time leads to the opening of something akin to space before and between those mental structures that we call thoughts. This then is experienced as non-attachment. With non-attachment, you can simply allow what will be to be without getting drawn into drama. When things don't turn out the way you expected, you're not devastated. In fact, you may find it humorous, and you'll find the lesson quickly. You can just observe that particular outcome with non-reactivity to learn from it. In this way, non-attachment creates a profound difference in your orientation in life. You become more inwardly focused and deeply aware of the interconnectedness of all things, as opposed to being relentlessly outwardly focused on material success and constant doingness. Entire books are written about this particular virtue, as it's one of the main principles in some spiritual traditions. But for the unbeatable leader, non-attachment is a game changer. And last, let's talk about courage. Courage could have been the first one that we looked at, the first virtue. It's fundamental to the entire unbeatable mind philosophy because it is the demarcation line between the negative and positive energies and attitudes. If you're stuck in anger, find the courage to transform that anger into action. Roiling in grief, find the courage to face that grief and move through the grief process to get to acceptance and peace. Dealing with the shame and feelings of unworthiness due to some childhood trauma, find the courage to get help through EMDR, other therapy, and self-care modalities to move on to acceptance and forgiveness. Dealing with depression or post-traumatic stress or addiction? Yes, that's right. Ask for the courage to reach out for help. Consider the following practices to develop more courage in your life. 1. Seek a higher tolerance for risk by taking more controlled risks every day. Risk the uncomfortable conversations, the hard workout, the cold shower, the intimate dinner with your spouse or child you've been in conflict with. Ratchet up the risk and see the rewards ratchet up in turn. 2. Train more and harder and make that training as close to reality as possible. Consider that time spent training and practicing the principles of Unbeatable Mind are what make the rest of the time you spend doing things that much more focused and effective. It's very hard for many people to wrap their steel trap heads around this concept. The yin of training and recovery must be balanced with the yang of achieving and building. And finally, be clear about your purpose and what you stand for, then be willing to stand your ground and fight for every inch. That takes and builds courage. Sounds simple, but it's not easy. Bottom line is that in order to be courageous, you must do courageous things. Developing a tolerance for risk is done one step at a time. Each rep increases your capacity for facing risky situations with courageous actions. It will habituate the behaviors and actions that appear courageous to others, but then are now standard operating procedure, or SOP, to you and your team. Hoo-yah. Thank you for your time today. That was Chapter 9 of Unbeatable Mind. And stay focused and be unbeatable. Develop virtues of excellence. And I'll see you next time on the Unbeatable Mind podcast. This is Mark Devine. Hoo-yah.